Hello everyone! When watching animation work, one of the most appealing factors for me is an overall flow and movements between the video parts. This is exactly where this topic comes from, video flow and transitions between the scenes. While there are countless ways to make this to work out beautifully, I will share two common scenarios and introduce why one could work better over the other. The first option is most often used by beginners. There is a main comp, null layer, and a bunch of story visuals. They are linked to the null and being controlled by its transformation properties. The second option is a bit more thoughtful. You have main comp and another composition where all the story elements are placed out in front of you. Accordingly, this composition is placed into the main comp and then animated as the movement goes. I will quickly dive into After Effects project panel so we could crack down these both techniques further and clarify their pros and cons accordingly. So with that said, let's jump ahead. Alright, so here we have an After Effects project. As you can see, some items are already created and visuals are similar as in the markup shown previously. So the idea here is to have main composition which contains null layer and scene visuals which are parented to null. That way we can control all those scene items by moving that controller. While this is kind of simple at this point, it comes handy when we want to make relations with few objects together while containing the overall structure as well. So that way we can make transformations for them individually, at the same time having that master control to the whole scene. And this is handy if there are more elements in the scene as well. However, it is important to understand that the more layers you have, the harder control is inside the project. So while it comes handy with not too much complex structure, it becomes difficult to digest and maintain the visuals when you don't have the full picture in front of you. So that's where the second option comes in handy. In such case, you have bigger composition, which would be as big as your planned movements between the elements. In this particular case, we have twice as big as full HD width, and you can see we have elements placed in the whole width. Accordingly, we could make those relations from one to another and have the whole composition view in the viewer. At the same time, we would just animate that movement inside the main comp. So here's the catch. We have blank composition and we just add that huge composition with all the items and their relations on top. And based on the voiceover or music or anything else which controls your movement in the scene, you just animate this position or scale or whatever. So this is where this option is a lot more convenient to work with and easier to maintain, because you have the whole picture in front of you and you just don't rely on the controller and its transformation properties. In addition, it's a lot easier to have this approach per scene base and don't mess around with a lot of objects in the main composition, as in this particular case you might have a lot more of those items and it would be difficult to get through all those layer lists in the main comp. So definitely it's possible to pre-compose those layers into one composition, but if these objects relates to other items in the scene, then that precomposition won't work as good as it could be. In that case, I would strongly recommend to go with this option instead. Of course, don't make this composition too big. Make it as big as you need to, but nothing more, because this will influence your rendering time. To visualize this even better, I will make a simple example. Let's say we will delete those layers for now and we will place those around. Previously, I haven't applied any of transformations and this might lead to some misunderstanding. So this is where it comes handy. You can see that I added position keyframe for a first layer, and assuming it will go to the second and then 20 frames ahead, it will interact with the third one as well as the fourth one. It's just a plain movement, and we can make this more smooth. So here's an idea. We have movement and interactions with all of those different scene items, and we want video flow to be from left to right in this particular case. Accordingly, we will start main composition at the left side, and just at this time we will move position to the end. And you can see that we would have all the movement along those items and relations between them. And in case we want to make any corrections, we will always have the full picture in front of us. There's another advantage for this approach. For example, if we already know that movement went ahead of point 3 and it will never come back to that area, we can always trim down those items in order to speed up the rendering. That way you just minimize the amount of pixels to be rendered. Of course, it would be possible to make such trimmings in the first approach too, but it would require to make sure that those items won't appear during the transformation of null controller. So basically, the first option is only good for minimal interaction and not complex structures, while the second is a lot more convenient when you have more complex structure and you would definitely want to have full picture in front of you. Understanding and nailing down those two techniques can help you to enhance motion storytelling. Don't rely only on wipe effects and leave those boring transitions for beginners to practice. I don't have anything against those either. They can be good for many occasions, but personally for me, the more flowing and connected item relations are, the better. I know it seems rather simple for now, but there are more reasons behind this. So with that said, if you are interested to hear more from me, just feel free to drop a comment and subscribe to the channel. My promise is to go into more advanced approaches, but at the same time, I also need to get my feet wet into tutorials. Thanks for your time, and I hope to see you around.